Oh, it can see me, damn it. Turn that puppy.
You're live.
We are live? All right, this is the June 29th, 2020 meeting of the St. Lawrence County Industrial Development Agency. We have joining us in the room, Board Member Lynn Blevins, CFO Kim Gilbert, Facilities Manager Rich Williams, Administrative Services Coordinator Lori Sibley, and I am Patrick Kelly, CEO. On the phone, we have Chairman Brian Staples. Mr. Chairman, can you hear me?
I can hear you, but I can't get you on live stream. It says live stream offline.
It says it's live.
We're not streaming to Florida.
For what?
You're smart.
The virus won't let you in.
We'll keep going while we check into that. Vice
Okay.
Chairman LeBaff, are you on the call?
Here,
Board Member Mark Hall?
here.
Board Member Jim Reagan?
Here.
Board Member Andy McMahon?
I'm here.
Is there anybody else that we missed? All right, Mr. Chairman, would you like to call the meeting to order?
Call the meeting to order of the St. Lawrence County Industrial Development Agency. Public notice was issued June 24th, 2020. I take it there's no public comment. Could I hear a motion to approve the minutes of the prior?
So So move.
That was moved by,
Got it.
that was a first by Mr. LeBaff, a second by Mr. McMahon.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Aye. That passes unanimously. From now on, I suggest, from the rest of the meetings on, I suggest that Patrick orchestrate the meetings for us. If there's anyone else that would like to do it, that's fine. But I think Patrick in the room with the plans would be better. Does anyone disagree with that?
I agree. I agree.
I agree, Patrick.
Okay, and just so you are aware, Mr. Chairman, we have confirmed we are streaming live right now.
Okay, watch this video on YouTube Live.
All right. Would you like to move into the financial report now?
Yes.
Oh, boy, hold on. Hold on.
This is where you would hear somebody say, turn down your radio while you're calling in. Mr. Chairman, in order to get the financial reports on the table, would you like to ask for a first?
Yes. Could I have a first? Could I motion for the financial report? Could I have a first and a second?
Yep.
I'll move it.
I'll second it.
All right. CFO Kim Gilbert's going to give a summary of the financial reports.
You have December, January, February, and March reports. Your December report bounces back to your audit, which we're going to discuss in more detail later, so I'm not going to highlight that one at the moment. January report, you received your revenue from the IDA LDC as part of the pass-through from the River Valley Administrative Funds. There was $140,000 of Newell expenses. February, there was an additional $38,700 worth of Newell expenses, and you paid your first quarter retainer. March, there was a $100,000 payment
Now joining. Stephen Morrill.
for the rail expenses that went to the final pay for the contractor, payroll expenses, and $50,000 came in as a project fee as part of the quarry project. That was partial. Does anybody want any more details on anything specific?
I take that as a no. Could I have a motion to accept?
So move.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye, passes unanimously. Reports of committees. Did I have a report of the nominating committee? Mr. Black?
Yes, you may. Again, calling the nominating committee together, Mr. Hall and Mr. Reagan. Mark and I had agreed to stay one night at the hotel before he'd agree with us. So we finally come up with this slate of officers. Brian W. Staples for chairman, Ernest Labatt for vice chairman, Lynn Blevins for secretary. Are there any other nominations? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it and so ordered. Also, we recommend that Patrick Kelly be reappointed as the chief executive officer, Kim Gilbert, chief financial officer, the law firm of Silver Collins, attorney general counsel. And I move those nominations.
Second. All in favor?
All in favor say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Opposed? Also, my term is up in September. I'd appreciate being reappointed, and at the end of that term, I will be 90 years old, and probably that will be my last term. All in favor say aye.
Chairman Staples, your term is up as well, at the same time as Ernie's. Would you be interested in being reappointed?
Yes.
You better be, buddy. To you and me and Bernadette down the tube.
I will
I think
make a
you'll do just
motion, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion that we recommend both you and Mr. Labatt be reappointed to the IEA.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
I don't know whether the board of ethics let us vote on it.
Well, I'll get to that under a different topic.
All right.
And board member Steve Morrow has joined us as well. Good afternoon, Steve.
Hi, sorry I'm late.
That's okay.
You don't know how much you've missed. Nothing.
Mr. Chairman, we're now
I
at
just
the,
voted.
we're now at the governance committee report.
Staff report, I'm looking at you, you look very nice with that red tie.
Thank you. I think we should probably do the governance committee report first.
Okay,
I thought Linda did that.
I would be happy to give you the report for the governance committee. We met this past Thursday. It was an exceptional meeting, particularly well run, I thought. Under compensation reimbursement and attendance policy, we made no changes. Whistleblower policy and procedures, the same as it was, made no changes. However, under the code of ethics, there's a great deal of discussion over the statement, and I'll repeat the statement. No director, officer, or employee of the authority shall accept other employment which will impair his or her independence of judgment in the exercise of his/her official duties. We determined that these policies are to be considered a guidance. From time to time, members will have to excuse themselves from conversations due to personal or professional involvement. But each of these individual cases will be handled accordingly. We recommended no changes to that at this time. With the defense and indemnification policy, we also recommended no changes. We reviewed the review of disposition and real property guidelines. We also recommended no changes. We disposed of property at 6 Pioneer Drive in the Potsdam Commerce Park when From the Heart Cabinetry signed an agreement to acquire the building. Also, the current value of assets is reflected in our inventory of real estate. Along with that, the IDA LDC disposed of property located in the Messina Industrial Park, Lot 18, when the Amtech Yarns acquired the building from the RDA. Also, the current value of assets is reflected in that inventory of real estate. Now, under the 2019 Mission and Performance Review, the goals have been reviewed and no change will be made at this time. Guidelines are written as such that they are used as a guide and can be altered from time to time based on your approval as a board. We did review the self-evaluations, and all of the responses are on the side of agreement. So we left them at that after we reviewed them. That is the end of the governance committee report.
Lynn, may I ask you a question?
Absolutely.
The two properties, the property in Potsdam and the property in Messina, I know it's been our policy to put them back on the tax rolls. Are they back on the tax rolls or pilot rolls?
They will be back in the tax rolls.
Both are subject to IDA pilots.
But they'll both be paying pilot payments in lieu of tax payments, but essentially taxes.
Yep.
Correct.
Per the standard IDA schedule, correct.
Correct. That's our policy that they pay.
Would you like me to move to the staff report?
Yes, Patrick.
Just to fill you in, these are strange times, as everybody knows. We continue to be working, supporting as many local businesses and employers as we can. We are on the St. Lawrence County Reopening Task Force. We have been working to coordinate the economic development response as well as the public health response to try to make sure that there is cohesion and coordination, working to make sure the businesses understand the guidelines and have access to as much business assistance information and counseling services as possible. We've been working very closely with the local developers, the local communities, the county chamber, the Small Business Development Center, the Cornell Cooperative Extension, as well as our regional and state level partners, trying to ensure a coordinated and comprehensive response and providing as much assistance as possible. As part of what's going on, not just locally, but also globally, I'll point out to you the price of zinc is down to about 92.7. With the economic slowdown globally, primary prices for commodity products are depressed right now. Obviously, that has an impact on facilities like the zinc mine, the aluminum plants in Messina, agricultural prices. So there is, while the state is making progress, and I believe the county is making progress toward the reopening process, there are greater pressures and issues at play that certainly impact the way our economy is going to be, the directions our economy is going to be moving in the coming months and years. So we are tuned in and being as proactive and responsive as possible, but by in no sense are we out of the woods yet. We continue to try to generate project activity. We're having numerous solar pilot discussions with developers and communities around the county, well over 20 at this point. We're working on, as you'll see later in the agenda, for both the IDA and the LDC, bringing new project activity forward. We are working with Arconic on the business park concept development. Our consolidated funding application to the state was approved at the end of last year, and we're moving forward with Arconic. As you heard in the financial report, we're working on the Newell building still. If you haven't heard, and I think most people are aware, there was a small roof collapse within the office section of the Newell building. Excess snow caused about 1,000 square foot section to collapse. We are working with the city of Ogdensburg as well as the contractor, getting bids for repairing the damage and working with the city and their insurance company. We are obviously trying to move forward with rehabilitating the building. We've submitted a Northern Border Regional Commission grant application to try to move even beyond the roof repair issue and get some more infrastructure and structural work done with that property. Parker Mabel terminated their lease in this building at the end of last year. They are fully moved out at this point. We are talking with other parties about the space. We are doing some marketing activity. When the COVID issues struck in March, we we began an advertising campaign, trying to reach out to the businesses and the employers in the county. In addition to making numerous phone calls, we've probably made about 500 outbound calls. We wanted to make sure that nobody fell through the cracks, so we've been advertising on the local radio stations, some of the print media, as well as some of the online media. That messaging is changing from broadcasting just that we are a central source of information for assistance and incentives. We're also trying to proactively inform businesses about the safe opening guidelines. As we move through the various phases within the reopening plan of the state, we want to make sure that people are in compliance and are making safe and smart decisions, both as businesses and as residents and consumers, because certainly we don't want to take a step back. So we're using our outreach methods not only to highlight that the IDA is a source of information and assistance, but also making sure there's awareness of some of the other guidelines and documentation and informational resources available from other sources as well. We did receive a 3-month extension on our public authorities reporting information system reports. You have been provided those reports. They are hopefully going to be approved later on in our meetings today and then submitted by the deadline tomorrow. You already addressed Brian and Ernie's reappointments. The only other issue that I would bring to your attention is that the CN Rail acquisition of the CSX rail line from Syracuse to Montreal, we are told that there are some questions right now regarding the sale, as CN is trying to clarify what kind of access to the rest of the interrelated CSX network they will have. So we've been told by some of the users on the line that this is something they are following carefully. Therefore, we're following it as well. In terms of other issues, primarily right now, it's all about responding, staying in front of companies, trying to be as much of a resource as we can while creating a little bit of new activity. That's your staff report.
Patrick, I have a question. It's my understanding you've been appointed and accepted to be the chairman of the county task force regarding the county's approach to this COVID virus and what we're going through now. Is that correct?
That is, yes. I said that we're on the reopening task force. Chairman Lightfoot asked me to chair the task force, and we have been doing that for about the last month and a half or so.
Pat, who's on that committee with you?
The committee consists of Rick Perkins, Jim Reagan, Nance Arquette, Dana McClure from the Public Health Department, Patrick Ames from the Cornell Cooperative Extension, Brooke Rouse from the County Chamber of Commerce, Dale Rice from the Small Business Development Center, and Chairman Lightfoot sits in a observational role on most of the meetings as well.
And Administrator Doyle.
And Ruth Doyle as well. Jim, am I missing anybody?
Who's this Arquette person?
He used to be a legislator.
Question, I don't know if it's appropriate this time, but we went through a period of forbearance for several months. How is that working on some of our?
Good. Both the LDC for its loan programs and the IDA for its lease programs offered back in March the opportunity for companies to participate in a moratorium. We're dealing on a case-by-case basis with the borrowers. Primarily, most are back into regular repayment or are on a month-to-month moratorium or relief structure. But I think for overwhelmingly the portfolio, we're expecting regular payments, and we have reached out we're trying to be obviously mindful of the continued circumstances the businesses and the borrowers are dealing with, but getting them back into repayment is obviously our objective.
The second question, a third question, during the period of time of this virus, in my discussions with you, we were able to help, and the governor also, that the major plants were able to remain open. Is that still the status?
Yes, the essential business designation process that happened at the outset of the pause initiative, one of the first, when you look back in time over what we did, early in the process, a lot of time was spent outreaching existing portfolio customers, the ones that you referenced in terms of the companies with loans and with leases. The next step was assisting companies that were seeking essential business designations. And obviously the state had a series of guidelines and advisories that came out about what kind of businesses qualified for essential status and which ones needed some kind of waiver or needed to clarify why they would be considered essential. There was I think a great deal of time spent reaching out and providing technical assistance to some of the businesses in the county. Alcoa, Arconic, Corning, DeFelsco, others, many others, about what their status was and how to assist them to qualify. As I think everybody knows, with some of these operations, it's not a matter of winding down at the end of the day and then not coming in for a couple of weeks. There are certain realities around their production cycles and candidly the markets they serve and the products they make that make it very difficult for some of them to shut down. So there was a fair amount of time spent on that.
It'd be impossible for Alcoa.
How many hundreds of jobs were maintained because of that, do you believe?
But everyone at Alcoa, 800.
The numbers in the thousands, Brian. It was well over 1,000. When you look at the companies that were able to keep in some form of production because they were deemed essential.
Good work.
And then after the essential business, just walking through the timeline, the next amount of time was probably spent learning about, understanding, and then becoming a resource for sharing and broadcasting the SBA program assistance, the CARES Act. A lot of time was spent matching companies and entrepreneurs and employers with the programs, the resources, specific banks, a lot, weeks worth of time understanding changing regulations and changing deadlines and timelines and requirements. We worked with the North Country Alliance to create a regional emergency loan fund. We've sponsored over a half dozen companies through that program. So it has been a hectic time of trying to be quick and creative and innovative and responsive. And I will say, the staff, having worked remotely through the process, did an outstanding job. Every single person was available. They were committed. They did an incredible amount of work adapting and very quickly working collectively and with one another and me to make sure that we were getting out to as many people as possible. I don't think, I would be surprised if there was an IDA anywhere that was as active and as committed to outreach and getting in front of its companies as we have been. And that's the staff's work.
I can concur with that from the several hundred pages I had to copy to do this meeting from the work that your people have done. Is the staff report completed?
It is.
There being no old business, New business, would you handle the resolutions yourself and call for votes on each of them accordingly?
I would. The first one would be authorizing a USDA RDBG application for commercial driver's license training.
So moved.
Mr. Blevins has moved that resolution.
Second.
Mr. LaBeouf with a second. I'm gonna have Kim give a little bit of explanation, just so everybody understands the resolution.
Okay, first thing to note on the resolution you have in front of you, there is a typing error. It should not be 47,500. The amount that we're actually applying for is 57,000. So that will be modified on the resolution to reflect 57,000. This program, if we're awarded the grant, will assist 12 individuals to receive their CDL license through SUNY Canton Crest Center at a much lower rate than they would be able to obtain it otherwise. We will use $50,000 of grant, and the participants will put in the balance remaining, which is about $18,000. So they will receive a significant discount on the cost of this training if we're awarded it.
Very good. If you can't move it, you can't sell it. Question, do we have to amend the resolution? Or
Yes, they do.
Yeah, I move the amended resolution.
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Now we move the resolution?
Authorizing a Fort Drum MOU. We have participated for some time now with Jefferson and Lewis counties, the Development Authority of the North Country, and Fort Drum as part of the Drum Country Business Regional Marketing Initiative. National Grid is also a funding partner with this initiative. Should we get a first?
No.
I guess before I go on, would somebody like to move the resolution?
I move the resolution.
I will second it. Okay.
This is our regional effort. There's a website. It's a sharing of workforce resources, infrastructure resources. Basically, it's Fort Drum as the center, and their retiring workforce as an example. It's ways we work together to try to capitalize on the Fort Drum presence. I talked about some of the advertisements that we've done to try to make sure people around the region are aware of the resources to help them through this most recent crisis. The Fort Drum initiative helped to fund some of these ads for us. So this is by working together, we leverage external funding sources to make our own resources go further. This is something we've been doing for years, and we recommend continuing.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Passes unanimously. Resolution modifying the 2019 budget.
So moved.
Do I remove? We need a second. Second. Go ahead.
Kim?
Okay, annually at the end of each year, we modify our budget that's in place to make everything more in line. This does that. I'm not gonna go through it line by line, but basically a few of the reasons is you had tenant possibly leave a building from the River Valley. You earned more interest income on banking revenues than expected. There were some journal entry accruals. Basically, this will bring your budget back down to where it needs to be to balance for the end of the year. Any specific questions?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Passes unanimously. Resolution accepting the fiscal year 2019 audit. Motion?
So moved.
Second.
Get a second.
Patrick?
Yep.
Or Lynn?
Well, that one was the second.
Andy.
Andy was the second, and
And Ernie was the
Ernie
first.
was the first.
A quick highlight of your budget, of your audit. There was $1.3 million due as a revenue from the Newell project, $1.78 million due for the rail grant. From the Hart Cabinetry, leased the building, so you saw that as a capital lease. Other than that, it was your typical expenses, your typical actuarial study accruals, your OPEB benefits. Does anyone have any specific questions that I can address?
I will say,
My review of the audit was that
this is,
there were no major or even minor, difficulties. The audit is clean.
Correct. It was a clean audit with no issues.
and we did receive subsequent to the year ending 300,000 of the 1.3 million for the Newell project. That was the National Grid portion.
Correct.
Good. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Mr. Chairman,
Passes unanimously.
with your permission, I would like to move the next 5 resolutions en masse, as they are all reviews with no changes to the annual policies that the governance committee did previously discuss.
I think that's really nice.
Mr. Chairman,
Discussion, Patrick?
Lynn made the motion, Andy seconded it. These were all the resolutions that were reviewed in the governance committee meeting that Mr. Blevins reported on. As he said, there are no changes in them other than the disposition of property, which has the disposition of from the Hart Building. I see no reason not to vote on them at
I agree.
once.
Mr. Blevin did a very excellent review of that, and I think anybody that wants to reflect on these can go back to that part of the meeting and see such. So, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Aye. Passes unanimously. All the resolutions accepted.
Mr. Chairman, you were provided separately your annual performance, the annual mission and performance report and the annual report for the Public Authorities Reporting Information System. With your permission, I'll hit on some of the highlights from the annual report.
You may.
What happens to the are we all done with the resolutions?
We
The
are,
last one,
No, how about the real property guidelines?
That was included.
that was the fifth one.
that was the fifth one, yeah.
That's a separate one than the others. Don't you have to vote on that one?
It was actually included in that, but we could vote on it again if you want. They, because there were no changes and we did discuss the real property that was disposed of.
All right, I'll accept that, no problem. I just wanna make sure everything's done right.
Better safe than sorry.
They're safe and sorry.
You were provided your annual review, the performance review. This is for the year 2019. Normally, this is something that we do by the end of March, but as I said, due to the extenuating circumstances brought on by the coronavirus situation, we've been given an extension until the end of this month. I will tell you some of the highlights. We made approximately 2,000 contacts with over 450 existing and prospective firms. We've talked about from the Hart Cabinetry, acquiring the building in the Potsdam Park. That's a locally owned family company that is expanding and adding jobs and moving into a bigger facility in the county. Corning did a 16,000 square foot addition. That means that over the last 5 or 6 years, they have added over 75,000 square feet of manufacturing and warehousing space. Community Preservation Partners, we issued a little more than $15 million in bonds for the Lawrence Avenue apartment complex in Potsdam. I think, Ernie, at the governance committee meeting, you mentioned how pleased some people are with that project and that facility in Potsdam.
Very, very happy.
So I think that was a nice project. We don't do a lot of housing projects, but that certainly has been beneficial to Potsdam and to the county. We approved a pilot for Amtech Yarns. That is a subsidiary of a company from Cornwall. That's the company that's acquired the Lot 18 building in the Messina Industrial Park. We did a project with Pepsi-Cola, Ogdensburg Bottlers, another locally operating family company that has made an investment in two of their facilities within the city of Ogdensburg. Quarry Potsdam, an LLC formed by the Vecino Group. As you'll remember, they are renovating and rehabilitating the Clarkson Old Snell Hall facility at the former downtown Clarkson campus. That project is moving forward. I mentioned the Arconic property that we are trying to redevelop and for lack of a better term, reimagine with Arconic's assistance. The North American Forest Group project with Current Renewable Energy in the town of Oswegatchie. We had this is going to be relevant in our IDA LDC meeting because we had applied for some funding through the Northern Border Regional Commission, and we, through the participation with the River Valley Redevelopment Agency, now have a plan for filling the gap in that project. So I think we're gonna ask you to take action on that in a little while. You know, Kim mentioned the application to the USDA. I think it is important to highlight the multi-agency participation that went into helping SUNY Canton create a CDL program. Prior to SUNY Canton taking that responsibility, an individual had to go to Utica or Syracuse to get that kind of training. Primarily with our leadership, as well as a number of other partners, including the County Workforce Development Board, the Power Authority, BOCES. We were able to, the Workforce Development Institute, we were able to assist SUNY Canton in creating that local program. They've already had one cohort go through the program. They're gearing up for another one, obviously, and hopefully the USDA funding will help make that more attainable for some local residents. The Northern New York Power Proceeds Allocation Board, I'll just highlight that they have made awards of $1.8 million as of the end of 2019. Numerous awardees are listed in the report. Our marketing activities are highlighted. It was, you know, it seems like a long time ago, but it was a busy year. There was a lot of activity. We are working very hard to keep that activity moving forward, as Chairman Staples referenced. Your public authorities reporting information system, which was also provided to you. This is 54 pages, so I'm not going to go into too much details. We've had individual discussions with each of you. I know we've answered some questions on some of the projects with each of you, but I'll highlight 26 projects are reported. We provided a total of 1.2 million in exemptions. We received about $319,000 in pilot payments. This represents a net increase of almost 300 jobs as a result of this portfolio of projects, which includes pilots, sales and use tax exemptions, bonds. We had a couple projects that have completed for the year, the Butternut Assets project in Lisbon, and the community bank back office operations facility here in Canton. So this will be submitted by the end of the day tomorrow through the public authorities reporting information system. Any questions on your annual reports or on this Paris report?
It's a good report, Pat.
Thank you.
Very good. Very good.
I think we should prepare ourselves. We are doing everything we can, so next year's activity is similar to this year's, but it's, you know, the field is tilted a little more now than it ever was before, but we're working at it. Mr. Chairman, that is all we have for the IDA meeting.
There's a motion to adjourn.
So move.
Second. Done.
I think we should now move, Mr. Chairman, into the IDA Civic Development Corporation meeting.
I'm holding it in my hand. Call to order the St. Lawrence County Industrial Development Agency Civic Development Corporation.
And for a roll call, I will say we have Board Member Mr. Blevins in the room with us. I think on the phone, we have Chairman Staples, Vice Chairman LaBath, and Board Members Hall, Reagan, McMahon, and Morrow. Have I missed anybody? Nope. Everybody is on the call, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. There being no public comment, do I hear a motion to approve minutes?
So moved.
Need a second. Second. Any discussion? There being no discussion, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Financial report.
Would you like a motion to accept?
I will make a
Yes,
motion that we.
I'm sorry.
Mr. Blevins has made that motion.
Second. Second.
Once again, you have your December, January, February, and March financials. Your December report bounces back to your audit, which we will discuss later in more detail. Your January, February, and March reports, the only activity on all three was interest earned, and you had your first quarter retainer expense.
Could you explain the bad debt allowance a little bit more in detail?
Okay, a bad debt allowance, you will find that on all of our entities. At the end of the year, you take your notes receivables or your lease receivables, your receivable amounts, and a certain percentage is set aside of that to account for bad debt. It's a proper accounting procedure. It's 5% on our loan funds, except for the micro enterprise, which is a little riskier, so that's 15%. That's how that figure is arrived
What I
at.
was looking for, thank you.
You're welcome. Anything else?
It's just an estimate.
Yeah.
Correct.
I just didn't know the percentages were used.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Aye. Aye. Passes unanimously. Report of committee, nominating committee, Mr. LaBath.
The same committee that, well, you want me to go through it again?
I think, Mr. LaBath, if you don't mind, I'll just quickly summarize.
I think you may have my permission.
Thank you, sir. The committee met, they recommend the following slate of officers, the same as the IDA. Chairman Brian Staples, Vice Chairman Ernest LaBath, Secretary Lynn Blevins, and unless there are nominations from the floor, I'd recommend that you vote on that slate.
So moved.
Second, first and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
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 And your,
Governance committee, Mr. Blevins.
I'll be very, very brief, as all of you have heard this before in the IDA meeting. We did meet this past Thursday, and again, I think it was an exceptional meeting. We had a good time, and it was well run. As you heard before, there are no changes made. I do want to remind you that the LDC disposed of property located in the Sand Industrial Park, Lot 18, when the Amtech Yarns acquired the building from the RVRDA. Also, current value of assets reflected on our inventory of real estate. End of story.
Mr. Chairman, would you, do you have any questions for Mr. Blevins? Do you want me to move to the staff report?
Yes, we do.
We have a motion to accept, correct?
So moved.
Second, all in favor?
Second.
Aye.
Aye.
Can't beat that kind of a thing. That's good. And,
Patrick Kelly.
for your staff report, the only thing, for the Civic Development Corporation, I will let you know, we have been contacted by St. Lawrence Health System. Their attorney, they are looking at a potential reissuance of their Series 2010 CDC bonds. So we've had some very, very early stage conversations with them. I will, once we have a better idea of what may be required from us, I will be contacting you if that is going to take action from the CDC, which I suspect it will. I suspect we'll be needing to have a CDC meeting in the near future.
What dollar amount?
I do not have that. It's in the report. Actually, Kim's looking for it right now for you. Hold on one moment.
Just curious.
Series 2010.
So which one?
2010. In the meantime,
28,500,000 was the original amount of bond issued.
the original, did you hear that, Brian? 28,500.
The last outstanding balance was approximately 26 million.
And the latest outstanding balance was approximately 26 million.
Okay, very good, thank you.
That is it for your staff report.
Old business, none, new business, resolution,
So
modifying the fiscal year 2019 budget. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second. Discussion?
I do have one question about this,
Yes.
Emma, the first line of it, gain or loss on investments. Yep.
We're on,
It's on page 36.
okay, can go all the way down to 36, hold on.
You got brackets on one side and the difference, and no brackets in the middle.
Are you referring to the audit?
2401 is the.
We're,
We're in the
I'm in the
CDC.
wrong one then, right?
Okay, I was like, oh my gosh, I can't find that paper.
That makes sense.
I couldn't even find that page number.
I'll definitely answer it when we get there, if that's okay.
All right.
So for the Civic Development Corp, your modifications are again, an annual thing we do to bring everything in line with your budget and your actual expenditures and revenue figure. Project development expense,
Relative to the budget.
I'm sorry?
Relative to the budget.
Correct.
Yeah, sorry, complete.
Correct. There were no project development expenses in 2019, so we're changing that. And salary stipend, increased benefit cost and salary amounts makes a small modification necessary to that.
Now exiting.
Any questions?
We lose one.
Whoops.
No, that's good.
All in favor of accepting the budget?
So moved. Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Passes unanimously. Resolution accepting the fiscal year end 2019 audit and attachments.
So
Do I
moved.
have a motion?
So moved.
Need a second? Second.
Let me do a quick highlight of your audit. It was a clean audit. There were no findings, no issues. Not a whole lot of activity last year as far as on the audit report. You have interest income, loan repayments, audit fees, salary stipends. Overall, you showed a loss of just slightly over $5,000 for the year.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Passes unanimously. Lynn, would you move the next?
The next five, yes, that's 5 resolutions, including the disposition of real property policy and
Now joining.
19 quarter property.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
Discussion? The same as the other ones, aren't they, Lynn?
Yes, they are. There were no changes from the previous year.
Any questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Passes unanimously. Patrick?
Again, similar to the IDA, you have your mission and performance report and your annual report. As you just saw in the audit, it was a relatively quiet year for the Civic Development Corporation. I will say, point out from your annual review, there was an IRS audit of bonds that were issued to St. Lawrence University in 2012. We subsequently received a complete, okay on the audit. What they do is they audit the bonds to make sure that if they're tax exempt bonds, that the funds were used for tax exempt purposes per the IRS's rules and requirements. That audit came back that in fact the bond proceeds were used properly. We've had a couple audits over the years. It's just, I think we have a pretty thorough system. We use, qualified bond counsels. The colleges utilize qualified bond counsels and we expected the audit to come back clean, and it did. On your annual audit or annual report of the Public Authorities Reporting Information System, I'll just point out there are 2 loans, one to the Fire Training Center, one to the Oswegatchie Crematory. We're reporting on those projects as well as 11 separate bond issues. And then in combined, we're looking at the creation of over 100 jobs as a result of these projects. And I will tell you, this is not something that I think people aren't aware of, but the Civic Development Corporation's primary portfolio are colleges and universities, hospitals, civic development organizations, 501c3s. There is going to be significant pressure on those institutions now and in the coming years. So I think our ability to be valuable in helping them, being reasonable in working with them on their various reporting and project activities with us is going to be very important, because they are an absolute key part of our economy. And as much as maybe any others, they are going to be challenged by this current corona situation. So if you weren't thinking about that, please be aware that that's going to be something we're going to be working on.
Patrick, I think the 2 that you mentioned, the fire training unit and the crematorium, are exceptionally important to the community. It's my understanding with the fire training, as we've supported them in the last number of years, that they would have to go great distances to get fire training. And since most of our departments are volunteer fire departments, it's good to keep them home with their training.
Absolutely, yes. They would have had to have left the county in order to get the kind of training that they can get outside of Potsdam through that facility.
I mean, several hundred miles distant, as I understand it.
Yep, yes, and I think it's an asset and a resource to numerous communities and fire departments around the county. It's certainly a great use of a Civic Development Corporation's resources to have a project like that and be able to support that kind of asset inside our county.
Yeah, we could not maintain the institutions we do, from Alcoa through colleges, even not considering residential, if we did not have adequate fire protection. So I think it's very positive that we've done this. Do I hear a motion to adjourn?
I'll move.
We are adjourned.
Mr. Chairman, I would recommend you go to your St. Lawrence County Property Development Corporation meeting next.
If I can find it, how's that?
In the meantime, while you're looking, I will say this is the June 29th, 2020 meeting of the St. Lawrence County Property Development Corporation. We have,
Thank you, I found it.
in the room, we have Board Member Lynn Levens. On the phone, we have Chairman Brian Staples, Vice Chairman Ernie LeBaff, and we have the rest of the board members, I believe, all on the call. Mr. Reagan, McMahon, Morrow, and Hall. Is that correct?
Did Lynn leave?
No, I'm here. He's still here. Just look at the monitor.
Public notice having been made, there's no one to take public comment. Do I hear a motion to approve the minutes?
So move.
Do I hear a second?
Seconded.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion to accept the financial report for December 2019, January 2020, February 2020, March 2020.
So move.
Motion? Second? Discussion?
Once again, you have December, January, February, and March. December reconciles to your audit, which we will discuss later. There was no activity in January. In February, first quarter retainer, there were a few expenses associated with the Star Lake property. Those will be reimbursed at the time of sale. Any other questions?
In favor?
Aye.
Passes unanimously. Report of committee, nominating committee.
Pat?
The nominating committee met, Mr. LeBaff chaired the discussion. They recommend Brian Staples as chair, Ernie LeBaff as vice chair, Lynn Blevins as secretary. Unless there's nominations from the floor, I would ask if Mr. LeBaff or somebody would like to move that slate.
So move.
Second.
And
All in favor?
Aye.
they also recommended the same staff officers in the law firm of Silver and Collins, as did the CDC.
So accepted. Report of the governance committee, Mr. Blevins.
There were no
Your motion?
changes made by the governance committee or recommended by the governance committee. End of report.
All in favor of accepting the report?
Aye.
Aye. Passes unanimously. Staff report, Mr. Kelly.
Kim mentioned the Star Lake store, the former Great American. I just want to let you know that we are in the process of marketing that store. We have numerous signs up at the property. We have received 3 separate, what I would call legitimate inquiries at this point on the property. We've had discussions, we've provided further information about the property, and we'll keep you posted if we have something that we think we can bring forward.
Question, we're not in a hurry at this particular time to dispose of it, but I'm asking, we're in a reasonable state of accepting what we would consider to be the right offer for the community?
Yes, that's a yes. We have a couple other lending partners in the project with us. So there is a certain amount we'd like to get as close to as possible or get paid off. But also, it's been a strange time the last few months as summer happens and things get busier. We're hoping to get a little more visibility. As I'm sure Board Member Hall can attest, that the Star Lake and the surrounding area sees a lot more activity in the summer months. So we want to make sure we're marketing it to as broad a traffic pattern as possible. And having the signage up has already generated some calls. So we're hoping that we can find something that is a suitable reuse for the building, for the community's purposes and for us financially.
I know this is probably more than an obvious comment, but I think we should rely significantly on Mr. Hall's input relative to what it means to the community.
Well, he is a member of the APA.
What's the APA?
I don't know, all-purpose vehicle, I don't.
Fair enough. Any other information, Mr. Kelly?
No, that is it.
So we're on to new business. Resolution modifying the fiscal year 2019 budget. Do I hear a motion?
So move. Second.
Discussion.
You'll see 2 modifications listed. This is to bounce everything back to your 2019 audited expenditures and revenues. There were no industrial build-outs, grants issued, and your legal expenses came in lower than budgeted for.
Looks good that legal expenses come in lower.
Absolutely.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Aye. Unanimous. Resolution accepting the fiscal year 2019 audit and separate attachments. Do I hear a motion?
So move.
Second.
Seconded.
Discussion.
Just a couple of highlights from your audit. It was a clean audit. There were no findings, no issues. You will see that the prior LKR property for Star Lake has been valued at $369 on that. Some of that results in a few new payables being on your audit, and that is to the partners of the original lending. Any specific questions?
There being no questions, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Passes unanimously. Mr. Blevins?
Mr. Chairman, I would like to move the next 5 resolutions en masse as they are all related and involve no changes. I bring them to the floor.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
In favor? Aye. Passes unanimously. Mr. Kelly?
This is a brief one of your mission and performance report. Kim and I have both talked about the primary activity was the accepting of the former Great American Store in Star Lake as an asset of the St. Lawrence County Property Development Corporation. That happened right before the end of the year 2019. That's reflected in your performance review. Other than that, not a lot of activity in either the performance review or the report to New York State.
Do I hear a motion to adjourn?
Move.
Second. Clerk? Passes unanimously. Next, Mr. Kelly?
I would recommend you move to your final meeting of the afternoon, which is the St. Lawrence County Industrial Development Agency Local Development Corporation. This would be your June 29th, 2020 meeting of that corporation.
Call to order. You've got the roll call.
We have Mr. Blevins here with us, and on the phone, we have Chairman Staples, Vice Chairman Labatt, members Hall, McMahon, Morrill, and Reagan.
There being no public comments, motion to approve the minutes?
So move.
Second. There being any discussion? The call for a vote, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Passes unanimously. Financial report, do I hear a motion for the December 2019, January 2020, February 2020, and March 2020? Motion.
So move.
Seconded.
Same as before, your December report bounces back to your 2019 audit. We'll discuss that a little more in a moment. January, River Valley issued $150,000 to the IDA LDC. The IDA LDC then by budget process gives them $100,000 to the IDA. February, there were $19,000 worth of CDEIP expenses, as well as your typical expenses and revenues for the month. January, MED contract costs were $10,000 for the RVRDA, and the rest were your typical revenues and expenditures for the month. Any specific questions?
There being no specific questions, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Passes unanimously. Report of committee, nominating committee, Mr. Labatt.
Mr. Kelly.
I will report for Mr. Labatt that the nominating committee met. It recommended Brian Staples as chairman, Ernest Labatt as vice chairman, Lynn Blevins as secretary. And if there's no other nominations from the floor, Mr. Chairman, I would leave it to you to ask for a motion.
Call the question.
What? Mr. Labatt, what did you say?
Call the question.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Passes unanimously.
Mr. Blevins raised his hand as a second, I believe.
Okay.
And
Governance committee, do I have a motion?
and again, your staff members would remain the same, as would your law firm of Silver and Collins, per the recommendation of this committee, if you accept it.
That's part of my motion.
Motion has been made and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Passes unanimously. Staff report, Mr. Kelly.
We closed on the Structural Wood Corporation loan that you approved some time ago. That loan closed in April, late March or April. When I talk about trying to keep project activity moving forward, obviously, fulfilling that loan and working with Structural Wood on their expansion in Waddington is certainly an important local business for us to be helping. We've talked a little bit about the moratorium option. We had approximately half of our loan portfolio in terms of borrowers and a little less than half in terms of outstanding balance, or about half of the outstanding balance and about a third of the borrowers accepted the 3-month payment moratorium that we offered. No principal, no interest. As we've talked about, that period is over. We are now dealing with each borrower on a case-by-case basis, and overwhelmingly, they have indicated the willingness to try to start making regular payments again. We have a couple that we're still working with, and these are, I think, positive two-way conversations where companies want to be able to repay successfully, and we want to work with them and be patient and be helpful. We are working our way through it. Other than that, that's really the big activity, other than some of the new lending resolutions you'll have in front of you later on in the meeting.
The Structural Wood, how many employees do they have approximately?
They are over 40 at this point.
And what would be the closest facility to them that would do something similar to what they do?
There may be one. There may be one south of here in Jefferson County. Other than that, I know they've been expanding. They've had some growth out into Vermont. There may be other regional competition or competition. Certainly, I think the bulk of their competition is north of the border. But there's nowhere else in the county or around here, limited.
And how they're indigenous, how old are they as a company?
30 years,
I think it might be more than that.
30 or 40. Yep, and we assisted in the ownership transition, 10 years ago or so, and now this is an actual expansion into they've acquired the property next door and are expanding their handling space and facilities. And it's a good project. They have been busy this year, which is a credit to some of the new growth that they had in their pipeline.
In my opinion, good when we've got generational families that continue businesses, much of what Mr. Blevins' family does, as an aside. There's no more in the staff report?
Hey, Patrick, this is Andy.
Patrick? Good.
What we did with the moratorium, was that pretty typical of IDAs around the state? And did anybody do anything exotic or unique?
Andy, I think it was typical. I think we were maybe a little ahead of some of the other similar lending organizations. We sent out in mid-March, prior to a lot of the shutdown happening, that we were willing to talk with companies about assistance options. And I know as this situation has dragged on, more and more similar public lending entities started taking a similar approach. What we had talked with the board about being able to offer that 3-month period. Other lenders have done interest only, they've done moratoriums. We coordinated our activities with a number of the partner loan funds we deal with. So we worked with the Development Authority of the North Country, the Ogdensburg Growth Fund, the Greater Messina Economic Development Fund, among others, so that there was at least some consistency within our region and our area. So I think that was a fairly common approach. In terms of exotic, there have been a number of the smaller micro funds that have created emergency lending programs, either with existing resources they had or with federal funds. We went the route of trying to package something with the North Country Alliance, that emergency working capital fund that we created with them to try to utilize. We knew we had money to lend in that program on a regional basis. So we tried to use a regional approach and use that to supplement, or in some cases, provide funding before some of the federal programs kicked in. So there's been others who've done similar. Some have done more in-house programs. A lot of the communities have done smaller, up to $5,000 loan, up to $5,000 loan, but it's all in the name of trying to utilize these resources to help as much as can be done.
Patrick, Jim Reagan here. How many firms took advantage of the moratorium on their loans?
I think it was about 20. We have a portfolio of about 60 loans, and it was about a third of them, but it represented about a half of the outstanding balance. So it was some of the larger ones.
And what would you say if it was half the balance, what would that have been?
About $4 million worth of outstanding loans. Our total portfolio is about 8 million. And it was a little less than, it was about 3.8 or 3.9 million of outstanding balances represented by the loans that were in moratorium.
I think you're being a bit modest, Patrick. I think your idea was ahead of the curve, and then you convinced us to go along with you. Would that be more what happened?
Well, we're on the ground and we're talking with companies, and hopefully we're able to see some of the storm clouds soon enough to be ahead of the curve. And if we then have your support, which we're fortunate to have. I mean, I think we were able to be very responsive and very proactive because we have strong relationships with our companies, with our borrowers. We're in touch with them frequently. They trust us, and we tried to be balanced. We tried to be helpful, and then having the board support to let us do that. I think in this process, we've talked with far more companies than we ever would have in any 3 or 4 month period, and we've deepened and made better relationships than we probably ever would have in any 3 or 4 month period. But we can't do that if we don't have the backing ultimately of the people making the decisions, and that's you, Seven.
If I think you had a great idea. I'll leave it at that. I think you had a great idea.
Patrick, the 20 companies that did take advantage, how many jobs would you say they represent? Ballpark it.
Probably 500 to 1,000. Probably 5, I'll be conservative, in the hundreds.
Don't be conservative.
Yeah.
I agree with Ernie. Is the staff report completed now? Is the staff report completed now?
Yes, it is. Sorry.
There's no old business?
Moving right along.
What's the next resolution we're going to go after? Modifying the 2019 budget?
Yes.
Do I hear a motion?
So move.
Seconded.
Second.
Now we can get to my question.
Absolutely. I'll let you go right ahead. What's your question?
Page 36.
Yes, that makes more sense.
Line, the first line. I just think it might be,
I had a discussion with our auditors about the title of that account. What we were doing is we invested in US Treasuries, and that was being recorded throughout the year just as interest income banking. And they decided, according to Gatsby standards, it needed to be categorized on gain or losses of investment.
anybody that watches this video understands that I have simple questions. The next line down, on the left-hand side, under 2019 budget, the figure is 29,745.
Yes.
Modified that to 31,810 and came up with a positive number of 2,065.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
Yeah, there's brackets there that I don't,
You're correct. The brackets, it is not a negative number. The first line, 2401, gain loss on investment, it should have been a 2019 budget, modifying that to 28,085, which is a difference of a positive 28,085. I apologize. Those brackets need to be
no
removed.
apologies necessary.
Thank you, Mr. Blevins.
That Herman Kell education comes in.
That's an important thing, those brackets. So please note that we will need to do an adjustment to this resolution modifying, or no? Or just this discussion does
That having been said, all in favor?
Aye.
That's amending it. Mr. Chairman, I believe you wanted that to be amending it to correct that dollar figure. And then do you want to vote on the amended resolution now?
That's what,
Amend that resolution.
I think that's what we did, right?
Yeah, sure.
Well, nobody made it. I make a motion to amend it.
Good deal. We'll second that.
Second. Christopher? Aye?
Somebody's got that.
Mr. Chairman, did you call for a vote?
Yes, I said, all in favor.
Okay,
Aye.
Aye.
we lost you for a moment.
Yeah, I'm not sure we actually had to do a mathematical, I mean, that's just a.
Anytime you change a resolution, you have to amend it to show it in the record that it wasn't changed by somebody else later after the meeting.
Okay.
Okay, fair enough. Resolution accepting the fiscal year 29 audit and separate attachments. Do I hear a motion?
So move.
Second.
Okay, quick summary, a few highlights of your audit. First of all, it was a clean audit. There were no issues, no problems. You had an Amtech capital lease purchase, which resulted in Lot 18 being removed from your balance sheet and represented as a capital lease. You had LC Drive stock conversion, CDEIP expenses of approximately $217,000. You had 6 new loans issued. You had 6 loans also paid off. Any specific questions?
Who are the 6 loans that paid off?
The loans that were paid off in 2019 were Hoosier Magnetics, LC Drives. The LKR debt was therefore removed by acquiring the building. Sandy Main, IDA rail loan was paid off, and Splendid Spaces as a micro loan was paid off.
Wow, good.
Yep.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Passes unanimously. Mr. Blevins?
Yes, I will make a motion that resolution 3 through 7 be voted on together as there are no changes in those policies.
Second motion.
Your second?
Second.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Passes unanimously. Next, resolution authorizing a loan of up to $75,000 to In-Law Brewing.
Now, that doesn't mean relative, does
That would be an outlaw if it was a relative of yours.
Ted would get a hold of that, that'd be an ethics violation.
Oh, okay. Do I hear a motion?
Don't move.
Second.
In-law,
Discussion.
this is your LDC approval of a River Valley loan that was approved last week. In-law Brewing Company is a microbrewery located in Chase Mills. They've acquired a piece of property in the town of Louisville that they wish to expand in. We've been talking with them. We initially started talking with them a couple of years ago. We've been working with them in earnest over the past probably 3 or 4 months. We're working with them. They applied to the New York Power Authority through the Power Proceeds Allocation Board process. They were approved for a $51,000 grant. It's a reimbursable grant for this project through that fund. We would be looking at a second mortgage, a second position on machinery and equipment behind a bank. The loan amount is up to $75,000 because we are working with them and the bank in this case on what the finalized as completed appraised value will be on the property. So the amount of the bank participation and some of the infrastructure costs is still under final development. We wanted the ability to be flexible and be able to assist them, to have our commitment in place and then work with them in the bank on the project. They agree to maintain 2 full-time equivalent positions and create at least 2 over the next 3 years. This is a small operation that has built its business carefully. I would say they've done it slowly. It has become a bit of a regional attraction in that area. There's been some stories about the people coming for their tastings and for their activities. They're open on a limited basis on Thursday and Saturdays. And they're seeking growth from a 7-barrel operation to a 30-barrel operation. And we recommend the loan for approval as the River Valley Agency has already approved it.
The due diligence in this was aided with a community bank who has a $200,000 or will have a $200,000 position.
That is one of the banks they are speaking with, yes. Yep.
So we wouldn't be involved unless there was a bank involved also lending with this.
Yeah, one of the contingencies in there is evidence of at least $301,000 in combined equity and bank financing. And we have a recognition that they are talking about terms with banks. They don't have a full commitment yet, but before we closed, the threshold would be a combination of 301 in bank and equity participation.
And there's cross guarantees by both them and the company.
Correct.
And this is maybe going a little bit far, but they both have established jobs.
Yes. Yep.
Okay. Very good.
Here.
Any more questions or? The resolution having been moved and seconded, do I hear a vote? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye. Passes unanimously. Resolution authorizing a loan of up to $20,000 to Jake Pet Circle. Do I hear a motion? What was that company again?
Jax.
Jake, Jakes, capital J-A, PES, Pet Surplus Inc.
What do they do?
Must be something to do with pets. Do I hear a motion?
Yeah, so moved.
I'll make a motion.
Second?
Second.
Discussion. Patrick?
This is an individual who we have worked with before, who operates a bike shop in Potsdam. The individual has an affiliated business where he imports pet food from Canada and is distributing it throughout the United States. And he wants to expand that business by moving into a property in Winthrop, where he will then do distribution. And ultimately, he'd like to get into licensed manufacturing of the product on behalf of the Canadian company with which he has a long-term relationship. We've dealt with this individual before, Mr. Levine. We don't have a direct lending relationship. We worked with the the Adirondack Economic Development Corporation on the bike store project with him a few years ago. We have worked with the North Country Alliance, who helped him with the emergency funding program that I talked about for that business. His repayment history with both has been strong. This is a microloan application. As you'll recall, when the micro enterprise, the local development corporation was extinguished, I guess, for lack of a better term, the IDA LDC took over the micro enterprise lending program. We'll have a first lien on a number of pieces of equipment. We'll have the personal guarantee of Mr. Levine. We will have a cross-corporate guarantee from the bike business. He will commit to assistance through the New York State Small Business Development Center, which is a requirement of the micro fund. Kim, anything that you would add in way of summary on the application?
No, that pretty much summarizes it. He does hope to create full-time positions over the next 3 years. He does have current contracts with the high-end dog food company, so there's some past history there that looks good.
What'd you say his name was?
John Paul.
John
Pierre Levine, JP he goes by.
I think that's an Irish name.
Well, the way the word was going, hey, I wouldn't doubt it.
Any further discussion? In favor?
Aye.
Aye. Very good. I think it's a very modest loan for what he's doing.
It is.
I hope we're not on the wrong tree.
The other, as a result, I would like to talk about some activity that the River Valley Agency approved on Thursday that also requires action from the IDA LDC. As you may recall, the IDA applied to the Northern Border Regional Commission for $800,000 to purchase and then lease to North American Forest Group, which is the sawmill company owned by Curran Renewable Energy, or Pat Curran, in the town of Oswegatchie. We had applied for $800,000 to acquire some pieces of sawmill equipment, a debarker, a kiln, a pallet manufacturing equipment, and a planer, to help him go from being a small-scale startup sawmill to more of an integrated wood products handling operation. That grant was approved. It would be a grant to the IDA that would acquire the equipment and then lease it to Mr. Curran's operation over a long-term period. Our approval was for $535,000, not the $800,000 we had sought out. The IDA had already committed $270,000. We were going to combine that with $800,000. because the grant was approved but at a lower amount, we've been working to find a way to fill that gap. In 2016, the River Valley Redevelopment Agency provided a line of credit to Current Renewable Energy of up to $1.5 million. Current Renewable Energy has paid that line down to $868,000. Current would like to access $265,000, which is the gap in the project in the town of Oswegatchie, from that line of credit to then put into the North American Forest Group's project. The River Valley Agency approved that draw, reopening the line to let them have access so they could access the funding for the North American Forest Group project. If you approve this, and remember, the LDC has to approve these River Valley activities, we will now have a fully funded project to move forward with acquiring the equipment, leasing it to North American Forest Group, and hopefully getting the project moving forward as early as later this summer or this fall.
When will we take this?
I'm sorry, Ernie?
When will we take this action?
I would ask
A
for
resolution that I will bring to the table right now.
Mr.
Right now?
Correct.
Oh, very good.
Yeah, we are trying to be nimble here. We're trying to move forward and get the equipment purchased and installed as quickly as possible. And Mr. Blevins has made a first.
I'll make a second. So this is a motion on, a resolution on the move. I didn't find it in the packet, so we're making it right, you're making it right now.
I have a copy of it in my hand.
Very good.
I have read
That's
it.
all I need to know.
Well, let me in there a car dealer, I'll trust you.
Well, thank you. That doesn't often happen. I have to inform my priest of that.
Call the question. I'm calling the question.
I call the question. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Passes unanimously?
As you look at the rest of your agenda, the only remaining issues are the 2019 Mission and Performance Report and the 2019 Annual Public Authorities Reporting Information System Report. Mr. Chairman, if you'd like, I'll highlight the summary report.
Well, Pat, I don't mean to cut you off, but let's just read it and go home.
Well, I'm presuming everybody's read it.
You well read it and it's brilliantly provided to us, and we're trying to give you a break. You must be tired right out after this long meeting, so we'll read it. You go home to your family.
I will defer to the chairman. Mr. Chairman, any other questions for me?
I'll defer to the vice chairman and all the other board members.
Yeah,
Move to adjourn the meeting.
I agree. Agreed. We're adjourned.
Adjourn there. Have a good holiday.
Yeah, you too.
Take care, guys. What's the holiday?
4th of July.
Oh.
It's Canada Day right now.
you want to hit, Rich?
Cool.
Thanks, everybody.
Have a good day.